All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming to the second session of the district and JESPA negotiations. First of all, I think we would like to just go around and do introductions real quick. I don't think we need to do any icebreakers. I think everybody knows everyone, so we don't have to say that we like puppies and sunsets. So I'll start. My name is Trevor Byrne. I am a bus driver out of North and the chair of JESPA, or bargaining chair for JESPA.
Hello, my name is Xander Kashub. I'm a kitchen worker in Jeffco. I'm also the president of JESPA.
Good afternoon, Darcy Hassler, paraprofessional, high dosage tutor, guest teacher, and
Sarah Smith, preschool, JCPK, 27 years in the district, president of JCPK. So that's me.
I'm Nikki Wilson. I am a health aide at Seacrest Elementary, and I've been in the district since 2014. Thank you.
Tanya Lopez. I'm a director of professional learning, and I do like puppies and sunsets.
Hi, my name is Jessica Goodkin, one of the directors for special education.
Hi, I'm Katie Jeter. I'm director of resources for Food Nutrition Services.
Steve Landergan, executive director of employee and labor relations. 5 months on the job.
Jeff Gatlin, chief operating officer.
Matt Polero, Chief Student Success Officer. Good evening, everyone in the audience.
I'm Holly Sexton, and I am the principal at Campbell Early Learning Center, and 30 years on the job.
I'm Mike Hins, Director of Fleet Services, and I'm filling in for Terry Slemons tonight.
Hello, Mark Strelo, Director of Custodial Services. Brandon Rudin, I'm the manager for the dispatch operations for the Department of School Safety.
Robert Elrod, Facility Manager at Elk Creek Elementary, 14 years with the district.
My name is Vicki Flores. I'm JESPA staff.
Awesome. Thank you all for that. And before we get started and look over the agenda, I'd just like to, real quick, we're going to have some guest speakers tonight, which will include translation. So we're going to let Danielle explain how that's going to work real quick, if you guys don't mind.
Absolutely. And can we get the agenda up on the big screen?
Yes, we will.
Hello, I'm Danielle Short with the Community Language Cooperative, and I'll be interpreting simultaneously between English and Spanish, well, from English to Spanish tonight. Invited here by the Jefferson County Food Policy Council. And just a few things to note. I think it'll go smoothly. You're all on microphones, so I think you'll be speaking one at a time, and I should be able to hear you, but those are a couple things. I will need one person speaking at a time, and I need to be able to hear. And just to be aware that I will be in the back of the room or the side of the room, and you might hear a little murmur, and I'm not being rude. And yeah, if I do need someone to speak up, I'll do this gesture, and if I need someone to slow down, that's the other issue, I will do a gesture like this. So there will be one moment where someone will read something in Spanish and then read it again in English. So I think that's all. Any questions?
Appreciate your support this evening. Would it be helpful if we took a pause every few seconds to allow you to catch up? I know you're doing it simultaneously, but you're also trying to capture a lot.
I appreciate that. As long as folks are speaking at a conversational pace, you're good. If pausing helps you to remember to do that, okay. Then I would encourage that. Otherwise, I'm pretty good at keeping up.
All right, sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. And we'll get that agenda up here in just a second. And I know they're going to ask to make it bigger.
Well, some of us can't see very well.
That I'm included in that group, so. And so we would ask that we could, just approve this agenda with some flexibility with the speakers.
Yeah, a couple of questions. One, just your intention around responding to Article 5, just an update on when you plan to do that. Maybe that comes toward the end of the agenda when we're planning for the 13th. And then wondering if you'd like us to respond to the mutual items that you had proposed at the last session. We could add that to maybe after our questions between that 7:15 time. If that,
I think Vicky's going to add that. I think we wanted to wait to respond to 5. We're going to hear Article 8 as well.
Yeah, we're happy to present Article 8, how you have it on the agenda there after dinner.
Okay.
Just didn't know if you wanted us to address the mutual items tonight or not.
I think that would be fine, yeah.
All right. And just clarity, would you prefer for us to hold our questions until after the dinner or after your proposal, or how would you like us to engage in the dialogue?
I think it would be nice if we could ask the questions like we had proposed earlier, and then we'd have time to write them down, and we could caucus and come back with the answers. I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Any other agenda items, or you comfortable with moving forward how it's proposed? Okay, sounds good.
I just want to say, just with maybe have this agenda with a little flexibility, depending on like when dinner shows up, kind of those kind of things. Not strictly adhering to the times up there, and to honor, parents and the people in the room who have things to do.
Yeah, totally. We respect that.
Thank you.
Okay, with that being said, if everyone's comfortable with that, I think I'm going to actually turn it over to Xander to go over the FNS pilot MOU and then get on with the parent speakers. If that's good for everyone, I will turn it over to Xander.
Okay, let's get into it. So first of all, I would like to invite up some guests today. Milagros Chavez and Delia Pacheco, would you please join us at the table? And Javier will be joining us too. So as we kind of brought up last time, our interest this year is to really dig into the FNS pilot MOU language that we bargained 2 years ago. The language as it is says essentially that we're going to renegotiate or look at it this year. So we wanted to invite some parents who have been working very closely with this pilot, who are part of the working group, who are extremely passionate about food in Jeffco and feeding our children healthy meals that are locally sourced. And we want you all to hear from the community and their perspective on how this pilot has been going. So I will turn it over to them to share their experiences.
Buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por recibirnos. Mi nombre es Milagros Chávez. Mi pronombre es ella. Vengo representando al Consejo de Políticas Alimentarias y al piloto de mamás. Me involucré en las comidas saludables, escolares y nutritivas porque tengo un hijo con diabetes 1 y confié en el sistema. Pero el sistema le falló a mi hijo y terminó hospitalizado por la mala alimentación escolar. En la actualidad, los porcentajes de enfermedades del corazón, diabetes, han crecido enormemente. Estoy aquí hoy para abogar por una alimentación sana, saludable y con ingredientes desde cero. También debemos terminar con la comida chatarra que se vende, snacks, chocolates, bebidas azucaradas, galletas, etc., etc. Ahora en todas las escuelas de Colorado las comidas escolares son gratuitas, pero no por ser gratuitas deben comer los alumnos, sus niños, mi niño, comida no saludable, comida congelada, comida en mal estado. Piensen que nuestros niños nos necesitan. La alimentación sana y saludable es su derecho. Al final, ellos se comen esa mala comida. Se habla de justicia alimentaria y de equidad alimentaria, pero en la vida real no existe. Les pedimos por ello, por sus hijos, por nuestros hijos, justicia. La comunidad confía en el distrito y espera mucho de todos ustedes. Gracias.
Hello, my name is Javier Alvarado Vega. I'm here with the JESPA Food Policy Council. I'll be translating what Millie just said, and I'll be reading it as well. So, she said, "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Milagros Chavez. My pronouns are she, her. I'm here representing the Food Policy Council and the moms working on the school food pilot. I got involved with healthy school food because my son has type 1 diabetes. I trusted in the system, but it failed me, and my child ended up hospitalized due to the bad nutrition he was receiving at the schools. Today, the percentage of heart disease and diabetes in children has grown immensely. I am here today to advocate for school food with healthy local ingredients and with minimally processed ingredients. We also have to end junk food that is sold at the schools, such as snacks, chocolates, sugary drinks, cookies, etc. Today in schools across Colorado, students get free meals, but just because they are free does not mean that the students, your children, my son, must eat unhealthy, frozen, and in bad state food. Think that our children need healthy nutrition and food. It is their right, and at the end, they are the ones who end up eating the unhealthy food. We talk about food justice and food equity, but that is not the reality of our district. Therefore, we are asking for your kids and our kids for justice. The community trusts in the district, and I expect a lot from you all. Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you for sharing your story.
Hola, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Delia Pacheco Marín. Soy una mamá del piloto de comidas saludables. Y hoy he venido en la representación de las mamás que me dieron sus firmas cuando pedimos el apoyo para iniciar el trabajo de las comidas saludables en el piloto. Soy una mamá pionera de Jefferson, impulsadora de las comidas saludables y nutritivas para nuestros hijos. Desde el 2018 tuvimos la oportunidad de crear este programa. Hemos sido escuchados gracias al apoyo de JESPA, pero no hemos tenido los mejores resultados para nuestra propuesta de comidas buena calidad ni transparencia en su elaboración. No recibimos la capacitación prometida para entender el proceso. Pedimos el contrato de Denver Food para entender el proceso de calidad y compra. No tuvimos las evaluaciones trimestrales acordadas. Estamos preocupados por la alimentación de nuestros hijos. No están en manos confiables. Invito a todos a tomar conciencia de mis palabras. Y yo les pido a las personas que están en esta mesa, que representan al distrito, que haya más equidad alimentaria para todos los niños. Gracias.
Hello, good evening. My name is Delia Pacheco Marin. I am a mom from the School Food Pilot. Today, I'm here representing the moms that gave their signatures and voice when we first asked for the support to begin the work behind the healthy food and the school pilot. I am a mother and a pioneer with the Jefferson Healthy School Food and the nutritious dense food that for our kids, and have continued to push for healthy school food. Since 2018, we have had the opportunity to work on this program. We have been listened to thanks to the support from JESPA, but we have not had the wanted results from our proposal for high quality and healthy food. We have not had transparency in the process. We have not received the promised trainings to understand the process. We asked for and supported the contract with East Denver Food Hub to understand the procurement process and quality control. We did not have the evaluations every quarter that were agreed upon. We are worried that the nutrition of our kids is not in trustworthy hands. I invite everyone to take pause on my words, and I ask that everyone in the table representing the district uphold food equity and justice. Thank you.
Gracias. Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you. So I just want to give a little context. We're going to be sharing revised language for the MOU that already exists. The last 2 years has been interesting. The intent behind this pilot was to introduce a visionary overhaul of Jeffco food systems, which are lacking in nutrition, lacking in substance. It's cheap food. So our goal was to create an opportunity for Jeffco to try something different. We're sitting here 2 years later, having hoped that some of these things could have been operationalized, but we're here needing to renegotiate an MOU pilot program because a lot of the intent and vision that we came to the table with 2 years ago has not come to light. It hasn't happened. So what I'm about to read is, I'm just going to read through the whole MOU language with existing parts and additions that we have made to identify things that we want to see happen in this pilot that were left kind of vague in the original language. So it is specific, it's detailed, it's ideas that we have collaborated with the community on, and we are passionate about this. I am extremely passionate about healthy food for kids. It's about the future generations of Jeffco. It's not just about right now and profit and maintaining a status quo. This is a visionary proposal, and we would hope that Jeffco would buy into that because our kids are important. So I'm going to read through the language. And it's up on the screen in Spanish and English. Okay, so Memorandum of Understanding, JESPA Community FNS Working Group and Jefferson Area Pilot. This Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, is made and executed by and between Jefferson County School District, R1, the district, and the Jeffco Education Support Professionals Association, JESPA, and is intended to clarify expectations, roles, and responsibilities for the JESPA Community FNS Working Group and Pilot Program. Background. The district, JESPA, and other representative groups will continue to enhance programs that provide quality, nutritious meals to all students. When seeking this outcome, it is essential for each stakeholder to understand each other's vision, create trust and respect among those stakeholders, understand the roles that stakeholders play in this outcome, and to understand the limitations that may exist in reaching the desired outcome. This MOU will outline the creation of a working group and identify measures to ensure that quality, nutritious meals are provided to Jeffco students in an efficient manner, and that all relevant stakeholders understand and support the path to this outcome. The continuation of the JESPA Community FNS Working Group and Jefferson Area Pilot will seek to expand its implementation into 3 additional articulation areas. The pilot will also increase service 1 day per week during each year of operation. Example, school year 24-25, 2 days, school year 25-26, 3 days. The above goal will be accomplished by undertaking the following activities. The members of the working group will be established to include Jeffco Schools FNS, JESPA members, kitchen staff working the pilot program, manager and hourly, students, parents, community partners, including additional experts in the field, principals of pilot schools, Jeffco COO. A core leadership council of members will consist of the Jeffco COO, a Food and Nutrition Services Management staff member, a JESPA JCS FSA participant, that's the Food Service Association, a parent member, and a community member. The Leadership Council will coordinate the group and set meeting time dates, working with the stakeholders, and to set an agenda. The working group will meet monthly. The working group members will share their vision for quality, nutritious meals for Jeffco students and ideas for pathways to success. The working group will hear and understand the current status and constraints of food and nutrition services in providing meals to students and collaborate with Jeffco FNS to overcome these constraints. The working group will review multiple operation methods for achieving the shared vision. The working group will collaborate to create a shared vision for school meals in Jeffco schools that encompasses stakeholder input and considers current limitations within the district. The vision will include, but not be limited to, ideals in menu creation and ingredient purchasing with a focus on locally sourced, high-quality ingredients that are not already used in school meal operations and that are of a higher grade, such as organic. The utilization of scratch cooking for Jeffco schools, starting with ingredients in their most natural state, least processed, and as opposed to ready-to-heat and eat foods. Utilizing fresh Colorado ingredients in a minimally processed form, picked or plucked. Incorporating community and student input into menus. Incorporating culturally relevant menu items. An emphasis on sustainable practices within the district, including but not limited to the monitoring and reduction of waste. Improving cafeteria culture. Providing a minimum of 30 minutes to eat starting when the last student gets through the lunch line. Compensation programs for kitchen staff working the pilot. Funding for equipment. Volunteer opportunities. Education and training, including nutrition or garden education, procurement and school food regulatory training, community engagement training, etc. And operationalization. Based on this shared vision, the working group will create a set of next steps toward achieving these shared goals. Analysis and assessment of information and learning. Continuation of the pilot program in the Jefferson articulation area and expansion into 3 additional articulation areas. Collaboratively develop methods of progress monitoring and a timeline for measuring success, including goal setting. Report to district leadership, superintendent, and/or board of education with updates at the end of each semester, including data collection, progress towards goals, challenges overcome, and challenges still outstanding. The district shall commit to authentically working in good faith with JESPA and our community. The Jeffco COO will serve as the point of contact staff who is committed to partnering with JESPA and our community and helping oversee the working group. Duration. This revised MOU will be active commencing August 1st, 2024, for a duration of 3 years with the goal of operationalizing district-wide by August 1st, 2027. Thank you.
Okay, we're just going to pause to allow the interpretation to catch up.
Thank you. Okay. That's our proposal for the MOU. I think we'll give you time to soak that in. And I think we can move on to our outsourcing, unless there are any immediate questions or comments.
Just a clarification, you'll send us a copy, right?
Yes.
And during the break, we'll process and come back after the break with questions.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Just stay down there. All right, we'll get started with outsourcing. We'll get that put up there in just a second. So just wanted to go over something real quick. As we gather today, we stand at a pivotal juncture with the opportunity to redefine and strengthen our collective commitment to the education support professionals, or ESPs, within our district. Our proposal seeks to address a core aspect of our collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, that impacts the very foundation of our workforce, ensuring that all education support professionals are recognized, protected, and valued as integral members of our educational community. We propose a revision of the existing language regarding the bargaining unit, its work, and the recognition clause alongside a decisive stance against the outsourcing of bargaining unit work. First, we seek to clarify the definition of the employee and of bargaining unit by removing narrow classifications and departments. We will create a more inclusive definition that encompasses all non-exempt hourly employees and is more accurate about the employees who are considered ESPs under our contract, and addresses and potentially excluding certain groups of employees who are represented by JESPA. All right, so existing language, employee includes all hourly non-exempt employees of the district, and we're planning on striking all the following, as you can see up here, which is working in the following departments. The classifications.
It's not up there, Trevor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it's behind you. Oh, there it is. Sorry.
We're good.
I was looking behind you.
I was like, what is he seeing that I'm not seeing? That makes sense now.
I promise I was seeing it. Just so there, as you can see. Working in the following departments or classifications, we're striking all the language there. Working in the following departments: job classifications, facilities management, transfer, materials management, information systems, risk management, food nutrition service, school safety, paraprofessionals, office professionals, health aides, instructional tutors, interpreters, locker room aides, special education preschool. So it's just going to be includes all hourly non-exempt employees of the district. Since we have no definition other than this one for employee, we propose to define the bargaining unit and its exclusions with the new definition and more of the exclusions to this definition. But no, X1X, bargaining unit. The bargaining unit shall include all hourly non-exempt employees currently employed or to be employed as education support professionals, hereinafter employees. In the defined unit, we will be referred to as bargaining unit members or employees. That one would be where we added. Excluded from the membership. I guess we can just go over the red lines if you'd like. Sorry, I don't have to read the entire. I'll go over our red lines. In 122. Sorry. We would be adding, this does not include the temporary employees are those assigned to short-term time-bound job not to exceed 60 working days. This does not include summer work or extra duty that a member of the bargaining unit performs. Moving down to we're planning on striking all of the 215, of outsourcing since we're redefining it. Oh, sorry. And I apologize because we rewrote all that, I believe, the recognition of the bargaining unit. With this cleanup of the definitions, we submit to clean up the recognition clause. It is currently in the same clause as the association rights when it should be on its own. Standard contract provides for a recognition clause that is clear, and association and management rights language should be separate. So recognition of the bargaining unit, this is new. So current language 211, board recognizes the JESPA as a sole and exclusive bargaining agent of the education support professionals employed by the district as identified in Article 1.7. The district must provide an electronic list monthly of all bargaining unit members, including name, employee ID, work site, job, title, grade, step, hourly, annual wage, daily number of hours, and FTE, opt-in home address, district email, plan days, salary plan, compensation, frequency, and job code. New Article X2, recognition. This would be 211. Board recognized the JESPA as the sole and exclusive bargaining agent for the education support professionals employed by the district as identified in Article 1.7. During the term of this agreement, all newly created education support professional positions which have not been designated by the district as administrative, confidential, or part of the JCEA bargaining unit shall be included in the bargaining unit. The district goes to, or 212. The district agrees to meet with the association and attempt to resolve any dispute over the designation of a new position as administrator, confidential, or JCEA bargaining unit. 213. If an agreement cannot be reached within a reasonable time, the matter shall be subject to bargaining procedures. The parties to this agreement recognize that the duties and work performed by the unit members in the bargaining unit shall be performed only by unit members and shall not be subcontracted or otherwise transferred out of the bargaining unit. So by clearly recognizing our bargaining unit positions with a clear process for inclusion, we have a better process for the definition of our bargaining unit and work, clearly lacking from the agreement as it is defined of our work. In order to protect our work from assignments to other bargaining units like JCA or contractors, we propose the following language. And this is Article XX.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Just to clarify, so 211 exists currently, but you're revising some of the existing language. But then 212 and 213 are additions to association rights, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm tracking that. Thank you.
Yes.
And we're trying also to just break up. A lot of this is purely housekeeping. There's just weird articles mixed. You know, you don't usually put a recognition with the bargaining unit list in the same sentence. So some of this is cleanup so that we can make our proposal on our protection of bargaining unit work.
Yep, I gathered that. Thank you.
No word. Okay, Article XX, bargaining unit work and staffing, Section 1, definition of bargaining unit work. Bargaining unit work is hereby defined as all labor, tasks, duties, and responsibilities that have been traditionally and historically performed by members of the bargaining unit, including but not limited to instructional support, maintenance, and operational tasks, clerical and administrative support, technical services, student services, and any other roles directly contributing to the educational mission and operational efficiency of the district traditionally performed by education support professionals. Any new positions, job titles, or classifications created by the district that fall within the general scope of duties and responsibilities similar to those performed by current bargaining unit members shall be considered bargaining unit work and covered under this agreement. Section 2, protection of bargaining unit work. The district shall not transfer jobs or assign bargaining unit work outside the bargaining unit, including but not limited to contractors, volunteers, administrators, or employees from other bargaining units. The district agrees not to subcontract, outsource, assign, or otherwise convey any bargaining unit work to third-party entities or individuals not recognized within the bargaining unit. The district may not reclassify bargaining unit positions without prior agreement with the association per Article 321. Reclassification includes change to job title and pay grade, compensation structure, changes in FLSA status, changes in bargaining unit, or changes in allowable hours and benefits. To strengthen the commitment to insourcing outsourced bargaining unit work, the district will partner with the association to identify all such work and devise a detailed plan for its return to the bargaining unit. This collaboration shall emphasize transparency, with the plan featuring specific, measurable objectives, definitive timelines, and a strategy for terminating existing outsourcing contracts. Periodic reviews will evaluate progress, ensuring adjustments are made as needed. Section 3, monitoring, compliance, and enforcement. The CWG shall be tasked with monitoring compliance with the Article's provisions, reviewing any proposed changes to bargaining unit work, and addressing potential violations or disputes. The committee shall conduct reviews at least twice a year of work assignments, outsourcing, and insourcing plans to ensure they comply with the terms of this article. Any findings of non-compliance shall be documented and addressed promptly. If any issues arise that cannot be resolved at the CWG, the association may file a formal grievance. And then with the additional language above, we can strike Article 225, which is the outsourcing article. And that is it for outsourcing.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you guys want to give us your questions or wait.
I think we'd prefer to look at the language together and then put our questions together.
Just wanted to check.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And then I will hand it over to Darcy, who's going to go over the safe staffing.
All right. Thanks, Darcy.
To catch some of you up to speed, last year we brought to bargaining ratios and workload. So some of you remember that. The district redlined the entire article. We would like to bring that idea back in a little different format for safe staffing. I would like to draw the attention to an incident that has been on the news, which is why we're focusing this on safe staffing. We're calling it's a new article, minimum staffing levels and hours for ESPs, recognizing that our people are our strength, and to ensure that education support professionals are provided with minimum staffing levels and hours. Incorporating this specific language into the collective bargaining agreement is crucial. This language should clearly define minimum staffing requirements, guarantee minimum hours for ESPs, and establish protocols for addressing staffing shortages. Recognizing ESPs as crucial to our collective success, we aim to build stronger relationships within the JEFCO community by centering staffing decisions around the needs and well-being of our students. So here's a proposed framework for such language. This is a proposal. We'd like some back and forth on this rather than a complete no like we got last time. So, new article, minimum staffing levels and hours for ESPs. This is not out of the bounds. We already have ratios for certain classifications. Section 1, purpose and intent. This article is established to ensure adequate staffing levels to create an extraordinary student experience and to provide job security and stability for education support professionals as a way to ensure success. Recognizing the critical role ESPs play in the educational ecosystem, the district commits to maintaining staffing levels that meet or exceed the minimum standards outlined herein. Section 2, minimum staffing levels. The district agrees to establish and adhere to minimum staffing levels for each classification within the bargaining unit. These levels will be based on a ratio of ESP to students or other operational metrics appropriate to the specific job functions to ensure effective support for the educational process. 1. Establishment of ratios. Specific ratios or metrics shall be determined through joint consultation between the district and the JESPA, taking into consideration the needs of the students, the requirements of the educational programs, and the best practices in educational support services. The staffing ratios shall exist in Appendix F. Side note, Appendix F does not exist yet. That's what this collaboration is all about. Number 2, annual review and adjustment. These ratios or metrics of staffing levels shall be reviewed annually and adjusted as necessary through negotiations based on changes in student enrollment, program requirements, and other relevant factors. Again, something like this already exists in our contract with MEQs, etc. Section 3, minimum days and hours guarantee. I'll wait for it to scroll up. There we go. To provide ESPs with job stability and predictability, the district guarantees a minimum workday calendar and minimum number of work hours per week for all bargaining unit members. 1. School year calendar employees. All school year calendar ESP positions will align with the teacher calendar, incorporating essential training and planning time to enhance job performance and student support. 2. All ESPs shall be offered a position with a minimum of 30 hours per week guaranteed. If an employee chooses a job share option with another available employee, then the 30 hours per week can be waived. That minimum needs to be in there, sorry. The current percent of each classification shall remain full-time employees year after year. Section 4, addressing staffing shortages. In the event of staffing shortages that fall below the minimum levels established in Section 2, the district shall, 1, immediately notify the JESPA of the shortage and the anticipated duration. 2, engage in discussions with the JESPA union to develop permanent, long-term solutions to prevent future shortages. Implement temporary measures to address the shortage, which may include offering additional hours to current part-time ESPs or overtime pay or extra duty pay for full-time ESPs, hiring temporary staff, or other measures agreed upon with the JESPA. 3, in cases where workload is too high based off the minimum staffing levels, an employee may notify the supervisor that safe staffing is no longer in place. If no action is taken, the employee will notify the JESPA of lack of safe staffing. If JESPA determines a job is being staffed below the minimum levels established in Section 2, the association can request a formal workload audit of the position. Section 5, administrator accountability for respectful treatment of ESPs. Respectful treatment and support. Administrators are accountable for the respectful treatment of ESPs by ensuring proper staffing, support, and training. A culture of belonging where ESPs are valued for their contributions is essential. Policy violations. Administrators found in violation of these principles will face accountability measures, including mandatory retraining, to uphold the respectful treatment of all ESPs. And I'll wait for it to scroll. We have one more. There we go. Section 6, compliance monitoring. The collaborative working group will monitor compliance with this article, address any disputes regarding its interpretation or application, and make recommendations for adjustments to staffing levels and hours as needed. Definition needs to be added back to 1, but included here just so we have continuity. Extra duty pay in instances where ESPs are directed to work outside their standard job classification or to a non-assigned work site due to staff shortages, they will receive extra duty pay in addition to the regular wage for this work at 20% of the guest teacher rate per hour in recognition of their additional contributions. And yes, Matt, before you ask, you will get a copy of this as well. I know there's a lot to unpack in there, so if you need...
I just appreciate you picking on me. Oh, that's great. Thank you.
I think we're going to take just like a 2-minute caucus real quick. All right. if you guys are ready, we were just talking since we were doing a little flexibility. If you guys are ready to propose 8, we'd be willing to listen. That way we can go over it 5 and 8 during dinner and we can all come back with questions after dinner.
We need to just take a brief caucus before we present, and we would propose 20 minutes to do that.
Okay, we'll see where that lands. If the food shows up, then maybe we'll do dinner.
Do you have a timeline on the food?
I'll have to ask Vicky. I'm not sure.
It's about 15 more minutes or so that we'll have our dinner here for our audience, if y'all are wondering. So we've got a little bit of time.
Okay, we'll hurry it up.
Okay.
Question though, Matt, down here. Sorry, I moved. You mentioned responding to mutual items.
Yep.
Is that something you could do in the next? Do you have to prepare for that too, or is that something you could do right now while we have some time, so we don't have to do a longer break?
Give us 2 minutes.
Great, you got it.
Right. I mean, we're ready. Essentially, we accept the mutual items that you presented last time, and we're happy to lean into those conversations and work through them.
Sounds great. Thought it was going to be a little more than that, but that's great. So I guess, yeah, if you need some time to get Article 8 ready, we can wait. Hopefully we can get that done before dinner happens.
Yeah, we'll try to make that happen.
Thank you.
Can I just since all of these parents are here and we've got folks at the table, one of the mutuals we proposed was the FNS pilot. So I wonder if there's anything you can say responding to it just while they're here to hear from you all.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming, and it's nice to see you again. Yeah, I mean, I know that that there are many shared interests in the pilot, and I think we want to kick around and talk through some of the proposed language changes, but we have an interest in that and supporting the goals. And I think Xander, you laid out a lot of nice specific things that it felt like the initial language was lacking. So we want to talk through that and have some conversation, but it is definitely something that we want to explore and find ways to continue to commit to. So really appreciate parents' involvement in this, the time that you've invested in this, and the continued work ahead as we continue to work through it.
Okay, what's your dinner plan? How long should we be on break for?
Well, if we'd like to try to get Article 8 out before dinner. We just need a few minutes.
You just need a few.
Okay. So I'll text you directly, Xander. Okay.
No group text.
We'll just wait here.
Okay.
Thank you.
family member. So we would like to add this language just to make it very clear that paid sick leave can be used for those purposes. And I also want to apologize. I did fail to share that 82-2-4. We're taking out the word or and adding that down here in 82-2-5. But then the intent here is to allow for when employees are grieving for them to be able to use their sick leave. And we'll touch on this in a little bit, but that's in addition to the bereavement leave that they receive. 82-3, no changes in that language. 82-3-1, we are wanting to change that last sentence. The district may require proof of leave and or fitness for duty as a condition of return to working following paid sick leave. Then 8-2-3-2. Striking out for and replacing that with when sick leave is taken to care for an ill family member or for 7 or more consecutive calendar days, employees shall advise the manager of HR employee leaves. So just trying to do some house cleaning there. 8-2-4, we are suggesting changing this. It was 8-3. So we are proposing 8-2-4, disability benefits rather than disability leave. And then 8-2-4-1, replacing the 8-3-1. Primarily the same language. We are adding, though, so I will read through this whole thing. For personal illness greater than 7 consecutive calendar days, the employee must apply for short-term disability benefits. Short-term disability benefits will be payable in accordance with the insurer's policy. Employees who are unable to return to work at the conclusion of the short-term disability period may be entitled to long-term disability as discussed in 8-2-4-4, and all employees will have access to unpaid job-protected leave in accordance with the Family Medical Leave Act. So you'd have to qualify under a Family Medical Leave Act to be protected under that, but we did want to add that language in there. 8-2-4-2 replaces 8-3-2. When an approved leave and receiving short-term disability benefits, the employee's accrued sick leave will be used to supplement the approved benefit provided through the district's short-term disability plan, not to exceed base pay. Then this is just a cleanup item of changing the article numbers from 8-3-3 to 8-2-4-3. And same with the next one, 8-3-4, we're proposing changing that to 8-2-4-4. Then we come down to what was 8-4. We were proposing changing that because of the changes above to 8-3, paid sick leave at termination. 8-3-1, again, that's just a housekeeping change to the article numbers, and we're still referencing back to Appendix B. 8-4, what was 8-5, we're now proposing to be 8-4, paid personal leave. Again, this excluded paraprofessionals and health aides. We're proposing to include them in this language. And from there, we're just changing the article numbers to align with the change to 8-4, so that underneath that it's 8-4-1, 8-4-2, 8-4-3, and 8-4-4. Again, housekeeping on the change in article numbers. Paid vacation would now be 8-5. So underneath that, the subsection would be 8-5-1. No language changes there, just again changing the article numbers, 8-5-2 as well, and 8-5-3. 8-7 we are proposing to strike through. Currently, paraprofessionals and health aides receive paid leave. As stated above, we're proposing that they receive sick and personal like all other JESPA employees. And then we're changing bereavement leave to be 8-6. 8-8-1, we are proposing to take out that language, changing 8-6 8-1, a report of bereavement leave shall be made to the immediate supervisor as soon as practicable. 8-6-2, the first 2 days of bereavement leave shall be with full pay, and any additional days shall be charged against accrued vacation, paid sick leave, or paid leave, sick leave, or personal leave, whichever the employee elects. And truly, we should have been striking out. Well, no, we're not going to strike out paid leave because we also would like to share that. Our intention is not to take that away from the employees that have accrued that leave. So we wanted to leave that in there for now. It will sunset eventually. 8-7, judicial leave. Again, just changing the numbers here. So it's 8-7-1 and then 8-7-2. No language changes there. What used to be 8-10, we're now proposing to be 8-8, parental leave and childcare leave. Again, we're just changing the numbers, so it's no longer 8-10-1, just 8-8-1, and so on throughout that article down to 8-8-4. Spare us all me naming off numbers and dashes. Unpaid leave, 8-9 is what we're proposing with the new change, with the change in articles numbers. We are proposing a change to 8-9-1. Unpaid leaves of absence may be approved for other purposes or when an employee lacks sufficient leave accruals to cover their absences. So we're asking to strike out uncovered purposes. 8-9-2, there's no language changes there, just the number. And again with the -3. 8-10, whether an emergency late starts. No proposed changes here, just changing the number again to align with everything above. Same with American with Disabilities Act and the leave that employees may be eligible for. Changing that number to 8-11 rather than 8-13, but no changes to the language. 8-14, changing to 8-12, but no changes to the workplace accident or illness leave. And then emergency sick leave bank, what was 8-15, now 8-13. And again, no proposed changes there, as well as the subsection 8- well, although we do have a typo there, it should be 8-13-1, not 8-12. See if I can change that right now, but I can't. We will change that when we provide it to you all. 8-14, what used to be 8-16, public health emergency leave. Again, just changing the numbers here with the article numbers. No change to the language. And that flows all the way through. And that is our proposal. Although I think I should also, shouldn't I present Appendix A with the changes to that? Let me see how I can get to that with my challenge in technology here. I think, let's see. And now I can, well, do we need it?
There's also an appendix attached to this specific article, so we want to shift over to the appendix so you can see how those proposed changes here are reflected there.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, for getting that to me. Here's Appendix A with our suggested changes. With paid leave no longer being accrued, we're proposing taking that out so that people are clear that it's not accruing. And then on the bereavement, we wanted to make it clear that employees are still receiving the 2 days paid. It used to say up to 4 days unpaid. And with the law changing, where employees can now use sick leave, and also our agreement also already had language where you could use your vacation paid leave or personal leave. We just wanted to take that out because there shouldn't be a limit. You should be able to take the time that you need to grieve. So, but you'll be using your personal, sick, and vacation or paid leave to do so. And I should point out that under paraprofessional and health aides down here, we are adding in the language to provide them with sick leave and personal leave. Oh, and I should have kept scrolling. We're also taking out paid leave accumulates without limit from year to year.
I'm sorry, Steve, I missed that. Can you repeat what you just said?
Sure, at the very bottom underneath accrual, details and caps, again, just striking out paid leave accumulates without limit from year to year. If we're proposing taking that out, you wouldn't be accumulating any leave in that regard. Any questions? Clarification I can provide?
No, and I assume you'll send this over to us.
Probably not today. No, I'm just kidding. We'll get that over during the break.
Okay. No, we will, consolidate our questions for after our dinner caucus, and so we can go ahead and take that if you just want to text Xander, and we can keep in touch as to when we'll get back.
Yeah. How much time do we want to set aside tonight for dinner, knowing that we're going to be doing some work too, it sounds like, to generate our questions, review, proposals, things of that nature?
Let's go for an hour and then connect.
All right. So we're looking at returning at 6:30?
Yeah. Sounds
all right.
good.
Great.
From our dinner caucus for the second bargaining session of the year. I think we're going to jump right back in. On the agenda would be the district asking questions.
We were anticipating a little bit more time with your written proposals, but given that we got them at 6:38, we just have some general questions from the top of our head that we want to ask, but we'll need more time with the written language itself to be more thoughtful about some of the questions we had. But that said, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to our team to ask some questions. Who'd ever like to start?
So we had some questions on the food service MOU. I think we'll just start there because it went down that order. So you put in some vague terms like Arctic areas, and what we're trying to do is have you guys defined out what Arctic areas that you guys would like to move forward with. The other question then became, have you guys defined exactly what schools, like is it going to be all levels, high school, middle, supporting elementary? That was one of the questions where it came from that. I think as we go down, do you mind if I just read down the list? Good? Okay. All right, so there was some words put in there about training specifically. And so what we had questions about, obviously, is, where's the funding going to come from that piece of it? Is there a source that you guys intended to use or that you're hoping us to use to push out for training? And then, what's the expectations behind said training that was put in that MOU addition? We obviously wanted to define the compensation. You guys talked about specific compensation on those food sites, at the pilot sites. And so have you guys determined what that compensation intends to be? That way we can give a better answer on some of that stuff. There was also, we got down into the data to support the scratch cooking, because we know that was a big piece that was proposed in there. And so some of the questions came about, is feasible time-wise inside of a lunch room to do this? Is it, are we going to have an increased food waste expenditure for the district as well? And ultimately, is this something that the employees want across the board? Have you guys pulled your own internal service teams for that? And then ultimately, will these proposals that you guys push forward also meet the USDA guidelines, which the district will have to follow as well? So I think our questions are just some of the vague terminology, which we understand, but defining some of that deeper stuff into each of those.
That was a lot of questions. So I don't know if you're expecting us to answer all of them at this point. What I would say is we can bring subject matter experts to the table with us next time to help answer it. I think we do have a lot of those answers, but I believe the community groups that we've been working with are hoping to collaborate to find answers to these problems where we haven't seen collaboration in the past. So in order to grow it, it is going to require the district to actually come to the table and collaborate to figure it out.
Yeah.
Do you want to send us a list of the questions?
On the collaborative piece, I think that's crucial. Yeah. And last time you had mentioned you'd rather have all of our questions, so we weren't sure how you intended to respond, if you were going to plan on responding tonight or if you needed time with the questions. So we're happy to go through them one-on-one and have a dialogue back and forth, or how would you propose to move forward with the questions? That's why Brandon kind of read them out generally.
I wasn't expecting that many questions, so we might need to go through them one by one, just to make sure if we have answers, we're always happy to provide them. And then if we don't, we can come back next time.
Okay. Make sure I'm on here. So I think obviously the definition of the Arctic area. So we want to know all the schools that you intend to support if we move it to an Arctic area, right? That'll be easy. I mean, as far as defining that out. The second piece is, like, have you identified these articulation areas when you talk going from 1 up to 3, and then ultimately we had some questions about the timeline of the 2027, meeting all schools district wide. But that being said, I think that was the Arctic questions.
So yeah, currently the pilot serves elementary, middle, and high school in the Jefferson area. So the intent would be to kind of follow that model going forward. We want to collaborate with you on the 3 additional articulation areas. So that's something we're definitely willing to have a conversation with you about and to try and figure out where is best for this pilot. And then I think with the timeline, like we said before, this is visionary. It's something that we want to see happen, and it's something that we are already 2 years behind the ball. So I see it as a 5-year plan to get operations, food service, and Jeffco to meet the needs of the community. So that's why we have that timeline.
So your intent just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, is essentially to replicate to some degree what currently exists in terms of the levels, right? And just expanding that to articulation areas, but you don't necessarily have specific schools articulation areas that you have in mind right now, right? That's where you're thinking more collaboration, defining those together.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do want to say though that there are parents and communities out there in other articulation areas besides Edgewater that we have worked with around healthy food that are very interested. There was, I mean, it was during the time that Jason Glass was our superintendent. There was a whole task force put together to go identify the exact same issues we're bringing you now, that nothing ever was moved on. And there were parents and students and community stakeholders that had met with the district from way back then. So we know that there are a lot of community members interested. It might be a matter of figuring out where it makes sense.
No, that's helpful. Thank you.
The next question that we had came up with is trying to pinpoint what the compensation that you're targeting would be at the pilot sites. I don't think that's probably a question that we could answer to.
We're happy to do some work on our own and come back with an answer to that. I think I would like to say that with Healthy School Meals for All, phase 2 of Healthy School Meals for All, there is money for wages, there's money for equipment, there is money for food. So I see this as kind of working in tandem. This is a structure to support phase 2 of Healthy School Meals for All as well. So would like to use that as also kind of a model to support the pilot.
So while we're bringing up data, I'm going to kind of jump down to one of the last questions I brought, but I think it'll just fit here as well. So we're talking about the data to support the scratch cooking. So really we're defining out, is this feasible in the time frame that students have to eat to do the scratch cooking? Do we see an anticipated food waste? Obviously, do we have the support of our employees? In other words, what we're trying to gain is that an employee who works at a scratch site right now, where they are prepping it, are they happier doing the work that they're doing versus an employee who has maybe less labor-intensive work at a different site? We don't know the data, but that was kind of the question that we brought off the top of our head.
I mean, I'm happy to answer that in a way. If our kitchens were staffed appropriately, we could serve students effectively. And I think that's an issue that's currently actually happening in a lot of our kitchens with the increase in meal service. Our kitchens are not staffed at the appropriate level to get kids through the line. So we are calling that out here too. We need to staff kitchens appropriately to feed kids healthy food. There will be enough time to make the food if we have people in the kitchen.
Xander, at the I'm looking at the document now. At the beginning here, it talks about this MOU will outline the creation of a working group and identify measures. Identify measures is new to ensure that quality nutritious meals are provided to Jeffco students in an efficient manner and that all relevant stakeholders understand and support the path to this outcome. Have you given any thought to what kind of measures you have in mind that we would be thinking about as a way to measure essentially the impact of this pilot to drive future decision making is what I'm assuming that those measurements get to.
Yeah, so I think it's important to recognize that this pilot work is actively happening now. This working group is meeting monthly. There is work we can do now. This new MOU, yes, is starting in August, is proposed to start in August, but this current MOU is actively happening. So I think utilizing the time we have left in the current MOU to define those metrics is going to be crucial to the success of this second half or second part of that we're proposing now. And I appreciate, Jeff, you came and met with parents a couple weeks ago to talk about the pilot. I think there are definitely parents who want to be a part of identifying how we can measure success in the pilot. That's not just how many meals we're serving. You mentioned waste before. I don't believe food service currently measures how much waste we're producing. So I think this is just something that we need to do operationally to understand what kids are actually eating when they are in our cafeterias. They're throwing away trays full of food, but purchasing junk food. So there's a lot of context here when we're talking about waste. We just need to measure waste, period, and then find ways to reduce it. I absolutely agree. We need to make sure that if we're investing in scratch cooked meals, we're not wasting food. 100% agree with that.
I just want to pop in here for a minute and let you know that waste is something that we do track on a regular basis, and it's something that we do keep track of.
How do you track waste?
I mean, I'm happy to get that information because that's not a report I specifically run, but I'm happy to get that too. It is something we look at.
Are you measuring waste of? I know what you're saying. So we measure meals that are not given to kids. We track that through our production records. We're not weighing trash cans. Like the food that ends up in the garbage, that's where we don't know how much. We have no measure for that.
Like I said, I'll get you what we use to measure that, but I just wanted that to go on the record that we do measure that.
Okay, happy to look at that data.
Just a question on around the vision where it says include but not limited to purchasing with a focus on locally sourced, high quality ingredients that are already used in school meal operations and that are of a higher grade, such as organic. And then somewhere utilizing fresh Colorado ingredients in a minimally processed form, picked or plucked. Are there certain, I'm just thinking about like feasibility of that, right? And ability to follow through on those specific requirements. Are there partnerships? And I guess what is the vision for ensuring that that comes to fruition? How do we go about operationalizing that to ensure that we're meeting all those kind of quality standards that are outlined here?
So we already are working with East Denver Food Hub. We have a contract with them. We are currently procuring food. Unfortunately, a majority of that food is not actually being included in the pilot menu. So I think it's going to, we need to take a look and see who else we can engage with and sign contracts with to provide that food, because farmers are ready. I've talked to some this weekend. They're ready. They have seeds. They're preparing, again, for this increase in meals for healthy school meals for all. So they're ready and waiting.
Okay, no, that's helpful. I was just curious to see what that would look like putting into action. I mean, right now, the what you're proposing here is to expand to articulation areas, but if it were to go bigger than that, thinking about how do we sustain that and actually ensure that, you know, these specifics we're able to actually follow through on. So that's helpful.
Can I just say we should also look to other school districts who are already doing this, or other organizations that can help school districts accomplish these measures. We proposed all of that the last time we fought for this pilot to even begin. It's possible, but we've got to have people in the district willing to do it.
Yeah, no, I didn't doubt that there would be, you know, potential folks that we would be reaching out to. I just didn't know if you had something in mind when you put this language together that we needed to be aware of.
If I may, Matt.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to jump up a little bit. And we have the members of the working group will be established to include. The first bullet is Jeffco Schools FNS. What is meant by that? That to me is very vague in terms of, do you mean administration? Do you mean employees, the managers, the helpers?
All right, that's language that's carried over from the previous MOU. I specify down below kitchen staff working the pilot program manager and hourly JESPA members. So I think the intent behind Jeffco Schools FNS is to have management involved.
Thank you. That's what.
Okay, any other questions related to FNS? And then Brandon will shift back to you since you have our questions down there.
Excellent. I think that was it for the pilot program itself. I mean, we discussed something about training, but I think that's just something that we would collaborate on later anyways. So we jumped over to, as kind of like a bullet headline, the outsourcing / ratio. We did shoot most of this off the top of our head, and so I think we have a little bit to uncover here, and I'll go a little bit slower, maybe each bullet point, and then we'll see if you got questions or we've got follow-up on our end as well. So obviously the number one was the all temporary employees or sub-employees being included in the bargaining unit. And so that was one of our questions, you know, from our lens.
What's the question, Brandon? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think in the language you guys had talked about, and I don't have the language in front of me, that all temporary and sub-employees would be moved over into the bargaining unit. So regardless of, you know, whether you're working 1 day a week or you're working 5 days a week as a sub, you would be moved over to the bargaining unit.
We struck substitute employees from the definition of exclusion, primarily because of the complaint that we just filed against Jeffco with the state, that you're posting and hiring substitute employees in place of permanent employees. So we need to figure out that practice. So that was a specific, if we're going to hire substitutes instead of permanent employees, then they need to be included in our bargaining unit. So it could be something we need to look at the data and see what's going on there. I don't know if you were referring to the temporary, we struck through some language in the definition of a temporary employee. What we struck through was, it said temporary employees are those assigned to a seasonal, variable, or non-routine schedule, or to a short-term time-bound job not to exceed 60 working days. We left in the short-term time-bound job, and we struck through the seasonal, variable, or non-routine schedule, because those terms are not defined, they're vague, and they've been used to create issues. For instance, at the beginning of the school year, paraeducators were deemed temporary employees, and some of the discussion about the language was that they're variable because maybe their students or like funding sources can be variable, et cetera. And so those terms are too vague and don't mean anything. So we wanted to be very clear about, like, let's figure out what actually we mean by a temporary employee.
Yeah, in that context, it's helpful. We didn't have the language right in front of us, so we're trying to recall exactly what was struck and what the changes were. So appreciate that additional information.
All right. The next bullet point we had, when we're talking about, so when we're talking about the metrics that we're going to use for the ratios, it's complex, and so we were trying to, you know, wrap around what is the global impact of that in a district of our size. Is this intended for all JESPA employees? Is this intended for a specific work group? Those are I think the questions we had. We didn't have the language in front of us, so you are getting our spitball version of this. But then, you know, when do we use the data? So is it from the previous year? Is it from a current year? And then we had follow-up questions on that. You know, is JESPA going to support a RIF if our student data continues to go down? Like enrollment drops, do we start reducing our staff every year it drops because the ratio now falls on the opposite side of the pendulum? And I don't think we felt comfortable with that either. So that was that next question on the ratio side of it.
So there is RIF language in the contract that the district can use if you need to conduct a RIF. That exists. So as far as setting up appropriate staffing levels, that's just work we need to do. I know custodial does it. It's in place. There are measurable staffing levels that you follow. There should be for transportation. We should say, how many students do we want to transport, and how many routes do we need, and how many are we short? I don't think we're in a position where we need to worry about overstaffing right now and think about years down the road. You know, so I think it's just work we're asking to do collaboratively to identify what's best for our students and how do we fill those needs. But if we're ever overstaffed, there's a process to do that.
Okay. And I saw in there, I thought I recall you mentioning like a timeline, being that these ratios and just determinations would be made kind of on an annual basis during the negotiation process. Is that accurate? And just help me recall, like, what exactly would be determined at that period of time?
I believe the wording was annual review in negotiations and then adjusted as necessary.
The ratios themselves, right?
Correct.
And that wouldn't prohibit, if there were adjustments that needed to be made between, the negotiation period, right? The language you're proposing would not put us in a position to where we couldn't make an adjustment between that period, or does it? Does that question make sense, what I'm asking?
It's also in the collaborative working group to look at.
Okay.
So not just annually. Changes would happen at negotiations.
Yeah, it would be in section 6. I know you guys got this late. I think it was how our emails get back and forth, but compliance and monitoring in section 6 with the collaborative working group.
Okay.
That's where we could adjust these as we work together to come up with these ratios in a fair way.
Yeah. What are some of the factors, let's just take maybe we could just pick a group and just help me think through what might be some of those factors that we could consider. And I know that what you're proposing to some extent is that the collaborative working group would determine those factors, but just give me an idea of what would you have in mind, say for special education, where we allocate paraeducators, for example, to a center-based program. What would be some of the factors that you think would be critical for us to consider? I'm trying to think through how does that align with current practice and so on and so forth, just to give you an idea of what I'm thinking about right now.
I think we just want to work with you to determine how you're staffing and where we are with that in order to just capture a metric that we can follow up with and measure and see how we're doing. We're in a situation right now where suddenly we find out that we've outsourced all these jobs to contractors filling paraeducator or transportation positions, but there was never any discussion before that about what else could we be doing.
Okay.
So in a way, we're trying to figure out a collaborative method to measure our ability to staff appropriately. So it's about identifying what's appropriate. So if you have center programs that are supposed to be staffed, how do you staff them now? Some are 3-to-1, some are 2-to-1.
It depends on the type of center-based program, right? So that's one factor. And there's certainly some ratios specific to the profile of learners that are served within those programs. And then in addition to that, all the other needs are determined through the IEP process. Right. I don't know if Jessica would add anything to that. Jessica's to my right, but generally speaking, that's how it's determined. Jessica, anything you'd add?
That something that might be helpful too, just in hearing you, is I can come up with a list for next time of the things we have done to try and not outsource, because that is something that we talked about last year. And I'm not a fan of contractors. It's not the way I want to move forward. And so I agree with you and don't want to outsource. And so I think having that conversation too, that you may not know, would be helpful for next time. So I'll come up with a list of all the other things that we've done in this past year to try and not do that. And I think that would be good.
Another just consideration here, I'm trying to play out a scenario in my head. So hypothetically, let's say we've, determined how we're going to we've reached some sort of an agreement around a particular group and a ratio. What happens when that formula is imperfect at best, or we're unable to, staff at the ratio that we agreed to? What does that look like? Because that certainly could be an unintended consequence, right, of not getting the right factors considered and being off with our ratios and things of that nature. I mean, I know it's going to be a work in progress, but just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, again, I know you just got the language, but in section 4, it says engage in discussions to implement temporary measures to address the shortage.
Yep.
Coming up with that.
And what, like, in light of the language that was proposed around outsourcing, like eliminating kind of the contractual types of arrangement, what might be some temporary solutions that you have in mind?
We've listed some, and it also says other measures agreed to. So if you guys are more creative than we are and bring things that we agree to, again, we're open to that as well.
Okay.
So it could be like, let's say you're short-staffed. Are we offering hours to other staff that maybe are, we're hiring certain people at 2 or 3 hours a day? Could we give people extra duty? Could we offer overtime by seniority? Could we?
I think something speaks to that section 3, right? When we're talking about minimum days and hours guarantee. So one of the things that we had, I think we even talked about this last year too, was we have some ESPs that only want 1 day a week. And so I think my, question in regard to section 3 is that number 2, where it's if they choose a job share, then the 30-hour week can be waived. Does it have to be a job share, right? My concern with that one is it too limiting in terms of us trying to come up with more creative ideas?
Yeah, I think you see there, our goal is to offer attractive work full-time with benefits so that we get more people, understanding that there are people maybe that want to work 1 day a week. So that's a consideration. I just think like right now, it feels like the Wild West, and whatever problem comes up, there's some random solution to it that doesn't have any reason.
Yeah, I can see why it might feel like the Wild West. I can tell you that, I can speak just for some of the services that I know my department has contracted for. It is entirely a last resort, driven by some mandate that we have to adhere to. And so I think Jessica's point of, us taking some time and creating some transparency around what are some of those temporary solutions or things that we think about before we even get to a place where we're jumping to partnering with an outside agency. I think that could be really helpful and help change the perception or feeling that it's the Wild West or things are just happening without reason, because we spend a lot of time on the retention and recruitment piece. It just may not always be as apparent to our employees who are in our schools, and we understand that. And so what we can do is help build some of that transparency and talk through some of those temporary solutions. And perhaps there are other solutions that you have that we haven't even thought of yet, which I think is part of what value comes with collaboration and working together. So, but I appreciate you sharing that perception.
I think just so you know where we're coming from, safety is number 1 too. We just had an assault on a school bus where we're questioning whether that bus should have had an assistant on it or not, how medical attention works if you get hurt at work. Like there's so many things in that scenario that are happening that just happened to be on camera, but that's happening in schools. It's happening to all over the place. I think what we're trying to find is clarity around the processes for how to address issues, because there were just way too many questions. Why didn't the terminal call 911? Where was the support? How do you get your workload audited? How do you get an extra para if you're a teacher in a classroom? I don't know how to find answers to any of that. So I think what we're trying to do is figure that out together so that we can address it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, one thing you may or may not know specific to the bus incident, and I wholeheartedly agree with your comment related to safety. That's of utmost priority to us. And, certainly what happened in that incident is absolutely unacceptable. And we're taking the time to do what we often refer to as kind of an after action review, really taking the time to understand that scenario in its entirety, and other potential scenarios that might be similar in nature to think forward about how do we prevent such things from happening again. What could we do differently, so on and so forth. So know that those conversations do happen and are happening. I appreciate the clarity you provided around that article. I don't have any more specific questions to the staffing ratios. I don't know if anyone else on our team does or not. I think we'll probably have some more questions once we get the time to really go ahead.
Yeah, I did have a question around the definition extra duty pay. In there, you have the extra duty pay in addition to the regular wage. Is that the regular wage for the position that the person's filling, or is that their regular wage that they normally earn in their regular job?
I guess that's a good question, because there's higher classification pay in our contract where if you're working and performing in a higher classification, you would get that higher classification wage. The extra duty pay is kind of a call out to something that was proposed to JCEA recently, a couple weeks ago, for teachers to fill in to cover shortages for paraeducators, and that was the proposal made to teachers. So in my understanding, that's $30 an hour that we'd be willing to pay teachers to cover a paraeducator role, which is more than you pay paraeducators. So it's kind of one of those things where we're trying to make a point here about what we're willing to pay people to cover shortages. And
I can speak to part of that being that the teachers do come with the additional education, knowledge, and expertise.
I'll just say, like, a teacher filling in for a paraeducator who does that job full time for their career, and they come in and do it for 1 hour and get paid more than the paraeducators. I mean, we don't want to allow that kind of thing to happen because we also need to protect our teachers' time. So we're also doing that to protect teachers from having to fill in to cover staffing shortages.
And just to clarify, what I think Steve meant by that comment was more specific to the requirements that are required for different types of positions. But what I think what you're saying is if you have, say, a paraprofessional who has a bachelor's degree and, say, a substitute authorization who's being asked to step in for a classroom teacher, just using a hypothetical scenario, that the expectation would be like a higher level of pay for stepping into that kind of substitute type position, correct? Similar to how, like, if a paraprofessional fills the spot for a paraeducator, knowing that there's a difference in pay there, that the parapro currently should be paid at the rate of a paraeducator for stepping into that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? All right, we had more to review on that. We've done a lot of talking. Did you have some questions specific to Article 8?
We do not.
Okay. So in terms of our agenda, Trevor, does that put us at thinking, planning for next session?
Yeah, it does. But we were going to ask one quick, speaking of planning the agenda, we wanted to ask when you would have your financial proposal ready.
For, like, specific to compensation?
Correct.
That's a great question. I'd have to follow up with you on that. When do you think is a reasonable timeline, or when would you expect us to jump into that? I know we had set aside kind of full days toward the end of bargaining for the compensation kind of benefits conversation, but if we need to adjust that, I think there's some potential wiggle room for that.
Well, when we also asked if you could get us the data that you had presented to JCEA, and we still haven't received that.
Okay. So just want to make sure that communication is effective. We've been reaching out, asking to ensure that we've provided everything you've asked for, and we've not received any response. I'm happy to follow up on the information that you did not receive, which sounds like it's the JCEA content materials, but we did reach out.
We asked for this in writing a couple of times or before bargaining, and we talked about it last time. I don't have any emails from you to the team asking what else we need. So
I'd
I'm
be
wondering
happy
what's
to
going
forward
on.
those communications.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
But we do need the data, and we've asked for financial data multiple times. You've provided it to JCEA. You've done a presentation. We talked about it last time.
Yep.
And we need to be prepared. I had to submit a Quora request last night for data that I haven't gotten.
Yeah, but
So we need data to be able to bargain.
I recognize that, and we opened an invitation last time we met to provide what you asked for specifically, and even clarified whether or not you'd like a presentation, and I think you respectfully declined.
We don't want to see the presentation. We want the data. If we're going to have a presentation, it needs to be public. And we could do it at bargaining, but we'd like to see it to see if we even need you to waste your time on like doing the presentation. We're not trying to take up time to just go through PowerPoints if it's mathematical data or financial data.
I'm wondering, just because I don't want us to fall into a situation like this where there's some expectation on one end and that doesn't get followed through on. Is there a different way that would be more effective for us to communicate between bargaining sessions? Would it be helpful if, say, for example, myself and Trevor and whoever else had just a planning session to talk through, making sure that we have the agenda and we're on the same page with that, ensuring that the kind of action items that come out of each negotiation session are taken care of in a timely manner? I mean, nobody wants to waste each other's time here. We went through this whole norming process for a reason, and it already feels like we're in a place in our second meeting where people are leaving feeling frustrated because something didn't happen that said would happen. And I've communicated significantly through email asking, what do you need? Do you have everything you need? Without a response. And so if that's not going to be effective, I'd like to propose that maybe we have a joint meeting between sessions to ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Can we take a quick caucus real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay. We want to be clear. We just want the data so we can do some work and move on. There's an email from you on February 4th, Matt. It says about the specific items you requested, namely the financial audit and JCEA presentation. We want to reassure you that we were actively following up on these matters as previously discussed. So I think the expectation was that we would just get the data, and we're not trying to do the thing, right? We just want the data to do the work, and we can move on from there right now.
Okay. Agreed. And I'd still like to propose just a joint brief planning conversation, whether that is a brief phone call or other type of meeting. It could be virtual. I know everyone has really busy schedules, but just to ensure that things are taken care of in a timely manner so that everybody has what they need.
I think we'd be happy to work on the agenda when we're here in public. We don't want to do any of this planning not in public. So we're happy when we get to the table on our bargaining session dates that have already been planned to put some time into making sure we're clear about what we need, when we need it, and how we're going to get it done.
How might we put something in place to where you can verify that you've received what you expected to receive? What could that look like?
I mean, we're happy to respond when we get the data we've asked for.
Okay.
I don't know what else you want me to say.
All right. Thanks, Sander. Trevor?
I agree. We can just confirm that we've received. If there's anything missing, we just need to be more diligent about confirmation of receiving and sending. So,
all right. I appreciate that. Thank you. Where does that leave us for tonight? Planning for March?
I think we can go ahead and start. First off, I think we'd like that data so we can start working on our compensation end of it and get with our consultant, and then we can work together on this agenda right now for March, since you'll be facilitating since we're alternating. So
yep.
Okay.
Yep. I'll take care of facilitation. Your intentions for responding to 5 or 8, what does that look like in March?
Yeah, we're going to counter
both proposals.
Yes.
Okay. I think our intention would also try to be to respond to the 3 that I think it's 3, it might be 4, that you sent over to us this evening, and that you presented today.
Okay.
I think we could probably accomplish that.
I think that's fair. That'll be a lot to go through, but I think we can accomplish that in one sitting.
Okay. Anything else that we need to add to the agenda for that next meeting date?
It'd be good to cover the mutuals that you kind of spoke to also, and the other mutuals that we don't necessarily have.
The compensation benefits one.
Yeah.
Okay. That might seem like a lot. Do you have a kind of a preference or priority for us that we should consider for that next agenda?
I mean, I think we want to just be cognizant of those things as well.
Yep.
I mean, understanding, going through 5 articles, counter language, yes, it's going to take some time, but we want to make sure that we're checking in on the progress of the other MOUs as well, mutuals.
Okay. We'll plan on countering the 3 tonight that you presented, and we'll provide you an update on what we believe we'll be able to accomplish with those mutuals, if that works.
Also, kind of from what Trevor mentioned before, financials, do we have any kind of timeline also for benefits?
We could add that to our agenda to start the discussion as early as next month or the next meeting.
That would be great.
Okay, let's do it.
I think we just need to be sure of when we're talking about the food pilot that we make sure our partners are in the room and that we provide for interpretation. So we just need to make sure we have a very clear time for that to prepare.
Yep, understood. So we'll essentially type up the agenda since it's our turn to send that over to you and just make sure it's accurate and captures everything that we intend to accomplish that night. Otherwise, I think we're good.
Unless there's anything else, we'd like to thank the district. We'd like to thank everybody in the audience for coming tonight. We appreciate you taking time out of your busy night. And we will see you guys next month.
All right. Thanks, Trevor.